Electronic Visualization Center by Dan Sandin and Phil Morton, printed in the Arcadian January 1980 issue on page 20. This program is for the Bally Arcade, also known as the Astrocade. It runs under either Bally BASIC or AstroBASIC. This is the cover for the Bally BASIC manual. It's sort of leatherette, and this came out in January of 1978. The AstroBASIC version with the built-in 2000 baud interface was re-released in 1981. This is the cover of the January 1980 issue, which features the Electronic Visualization Center. This is the description of this program from the Arcadian. Enlarged letters have cropped up again. This time they are done graphically as opposed to previous poked versions. In the program I used big letters for the item to be printed where Phil used ARCADIAN HOT SHOT. Lines 129 through 240 clean up the screen and add the buckshot. Phil has an AXIOM EX-850 video printer which can, quote, photograph the screen and provide a reproducible image. Co-author Phil Morton will be vanning to Alaska this summer and would like to contact Northerners. And he gives his address here. The comment in this program describes how the program works basically. It says 2 text lines scaled bigger via the L variable. I'm using this video for the Electronic Visualization Center as an excuse to sort of give some background on video art. This program was created probably quite quickly, it's not very long, by Phil Morton, as I said, and Dan Sandin. Both of these people were very important to the video art movement, I guess, that was going on in computers at this time. It had already started back, I guess, in the late 60s, early 70s. I'm really not sure. I'm still learning about all this. I find it very interesting, and I'm delving deeper into it via the Astrocade. I mean, there's a million ways to look into it, especially via film. But the important part for me, since I'm relating all this to the Astrocade, is that these people who are largely a large part of how video art was created ended up in the late 70s using the Astrocade with BASIC to create some of their own video art. They went on to use the ZGrass language, which was with the UV1 computer, and that computer had about 4 times the resolution as the Astrocade, but also happened to use the same technology that was used in the Astrocade, the same technology exactly and resolution that was used in games like Gorf and Wizard of War. So what I've decided to do for the background on these 2 people is to get some information that was printed in 1985. I found that both of these people, Phil and Dan Sandin, have their own Wikipedia pages that gives quite a bit of background about them, and if you're more interested in what they did afterward, you'll find that you'll find all the information you need there. I think Phil Morton passed away in 2003. Dan Sandin is still working, I think, at the University of Chicago. At least his webpage is there and it seems current. So this handout is about 3 folded pages, and it came out in 1985, as I said, for an art show that went on for about 3 weeks. Here's a picture of Dan from 1973. If you look online, you'll see much more current pictures, but I think this picture is pretty cool, and it's used in quite a bit of places. This is his image processor. It's an analog computer. And I'll just read what it says here about him. Take a look at the picture, and it says, Dan Sandin, inventor and designer of electronics instruments for visual performance and personal growth, developer of educational faculties or facilities and programs related to electronic visualization. He has degrees in nuclear physics, inventor of image processor, which has been copied more than 20 times, plans furnished to you if you send a self-addressed envelope capable of holding 100 pages. He's engaged in development of a new video synthesizer, the Digital Image Processor, DIP, involved in 3-dimensional computer imaging utilizing integral holography and integral photography. Co-developer of the Circle Graphics Habitat, a short-order educational media house. Now, I know that the image processor was recreated several times, and there would be, and that it was using the copyleft movement of that time, which I think came out because of Phil Morton. If anyone knows where to get the schematics and stuff for the image processor online, which they might be out there, let me know. I'd like to see them, and I would like to add them to ballyalley.com, because while this is only related a bit to the Astrocade, I would like to include it on Bally Alley. Here's what it says about Phil. He's a neo-electronic artist with digital computing language literacy in ZGrass and BASIC, patch programming literacy with analog computers, in this case I guess it's referring to the image processor, a philosopher, a recreational vehicle designer, former associate professor at the Art Institute of Chicago, a builder of high-speed general-purpose analog video computer, because I think he made the very first copy of the image processor. He actually got the permission of Dan Sandin, and he was the one who sort of made it possible for people to get the plans for it, I think. He desires deep space travel opportunity, currently researching interactive neuroelectronic audiovisual instruments, sole owner of video research consultants dedicated to real-time aural and visual performance, yearly contract with the SIGGRAPH conference, lives with and through the medium conversationally. Electronic Visualization Center was printed in the January 15th, 1980 issue of the Arcadian. It was actually sent just a week and a half or so earlier to Bob Fabris, the editor, on January 2nd, 1980. And this is the letter that was written by Phil Morton and I guess Jane Veeder. As you can see here, it says, the enclosed graphics have been realized first on the arcade, so they're talking about the Bally Arcade, the Astrocade here, sent line level via composite video over the Sandin image processor, an analog computer optimized for the processing of video signals, displayed on the TV monitor, fed into an AXIOM EX-850 video printer. And this video printer is a new toy just out. It takes any TV picture and turns it into a silver gray paper picture. The video printer accepts a 75 ohm composite video signal as its input, B and C. Thus, any graphic computer on a TV set can be video printed onto paper if your TV set or arcade can output a 75 ohm composite video signal. This is a picture of the printer he's talking about. I found this on the internet. It was for sale for about $250. It didn't come with any paper. There's a few of them and they all seem to sell for about this price. I haven't seen any that actually sold. This picture is from eBay. I did take a look about how much this printer cost in 1980. I did find a few ads for it in 1981 and it sold for about $1,500, so it was a pretty expensive printer. I mentioned earlier in the statement that I read that Bob Fabris wrote in the Arcadian that Phil was putting out a call for anyone who might be in Alaska. And here he talks about exactly what he's doing. He says, we, Jane Veeder and Phil Morton, are going to be in Alaska this summer. Could you please send out a call via the Arcadian for any contact there? We'll be mobiling in a Chevy van with 3/4-inch videotapes, which have much applied Arcadian graphics into the AV synthesis channels. If any Alaskans would like to contact us, please write or phone. And he gives his address. So that's pretty neat. Along with this letter, Phil sent out a whole bunch of printouts, like 30 of them, to Bob, or 30 screenshots. I shouldn't say printouts because this printer, the AXIOM EX-850, prints to silver thermal paper and long scrolls. It's 5 inches across, and he cut up about 15 of the printouts and put them separately. The rest of them he just left on a scroll, which I scanned in this year or last year from the Bob Fabris collection. Phil says here in this letter, my purpose in sending you these graphics is to encourage the increased visualization of computer periodics. Hope you and your printing service, by that he means the Arcadian, can find a way to reproduce this species, he says, of graphic imagery. If you can, I will send you more constantly, along with useful and hopefully embedded programs for other Arcadians. This made me sad when I read this letter, because none of those pictures that I'm going to be showing here were actually sent in or were ever printed in the Arcadian. It's a shame because they're pretty neat, and also he says he would have been sending programs into the Arcadian, but Bob never took him up on this offer apparently. He does include his Arcadian Hot Shot graphic program, and I love the story behind this. He says, the Arcadian Hot Shot graphic was motivated by the desire to give my first 12 students a, quote, certificate of sorts for completing the digital video course at the School of Art Institute of Chicago, the fall semester 1979. This was a new course into digital video. I chose the arcade to be the vehicle for students to break their art assumptions on when facing the need to learn computer programming in an art college. It worked out well, very well. And in about 1979, or maybe even late 1978, Bob Fabris included a small piece of news that the University of Chicago was actually using the Bally Video Arcade for these classes. So It's pretty neat that I guess here we have 12 people that finished the program. So that's pretty cool. And this program, which is still coming up, is really just a jumping off point for me to make this video. As I said, it's kind of, not very exciting program, but it gave me a great excuse to look at the background for how this program came about and came into being. These next few pages from the letter don't have a lot to do with the Bally Arcade, but it is mentioned. Some of these tapes, these 3/4 inch tapes that Phil mentions earlier, were programs that he calls them programs because they were meant to be shown on TV, and they did include graphics that were created on the Bally Astrocade or on the Bally Arcade. In particular, program number 7 has Bally Arcade graphics, and I think program number 9. I think some of these programs are available to watch on the internet, not necessarily on YouTube. They're a little hard to find because they don't mention that they are that they're going to include the Astrocade, but they're out there in some form. I think they were saved to VHS, and I think someone eventually converted them into a format that could be used on the internet. This last page here is just a picture that was included as the last page of the letter, and it is Jane Veeder on top, and on the bottom there's Phil. I think the picture's pretty cool. On the top, I'm supposing they're in Montana because Jane Veeder, I think, makes a video called Montana, and it used seagrass. And this is actually, she does this, not yet, this is 1980, but I think that came out in like 1982 or something like that. And it's got some buffaloes and things in it. So this is kind of a cool precursor to see here. I like Jane's t-shirt, it says seagraph on it. These are the pictures that were printed from the AXIOM EX-850 printer from Phil Morton. There are about 30 of them, and I'm just going to show them all. I'm not going to have comments on all of them, but I will try to say at least something. I'm not sure the order these should actually appear in. Some of these were on the scrolls, some of them he'd cut up. The order, I think they were stapled together, but I'm not sure if I took them apart or not. The order doesn't seem to be important. This one here says RSCH. That probably stands for something. I don't know what it stands for. This is a printout from the Bally Arcade circa January 1980 or December 1979. This one here is pretty interesting. I don't know what Phil had in mind exactly, but he says a quote here that says, "A mobile home computer television transmission terminal, electronic visualization center." If nothing else, there's been a lot of things I've seen over the years that make the Astrocade not just to be a video game console and a computer. Instead, this is something, if Phil thought this way, and if those 12 students who were using the arcade thought it was a computer, I'd say we need to go ahead and call it a computer, don't you? To me, this looks like a TV that has been tilted and fallen back against a wall, and maybe that's an antenna sticking out of it, and it's, I don't know, burst into flame. That probably says something about my personality. This is the end of some program. It looks like it was, I don't know, like a comet hitting a planet. I don't know. I wish I knew what all these programs were that were running in order for this to happen. This is, when I was looking through these pictures, I scanned it in and I didn't make this connection here. But this says, board, you can and must understand computers. Then there's this picture of a hand, and it says lib. And I saw that and I said, isn't that the cover of Computer Lib? And lo and behold, it sure is. Check it out. This is the cover of Computer Lib. This was printed in 1974. It's by Ted Nelson. It's very, very famous. And you can see here the slogan on the cover of this book is, "You can and must understand computers now, Computer Lib." Now going back to that first one, it says, "You can and must understand computers." And then there's the hand sticking up. I don't know if Phil wrote this freehand. I'm guessing he did, and he didn't like, or if he drew this freehand. I'm not sure if he created a program to draw this, but I doubt it. I do like how he was using a system that had 4K of RAM, so he is talking about 64K right here. Well, let's get past all that and get to our next picture. This one is just it looks like it's doodled to me. With that pattern, the swirl, and maybe an explosion in the center. I think it's doodled. I'm not sure how he was doing this. I still can't get over that I'm showing screenshots that were taken in 1980 here. You know, you get these out of magazines and stuff, but it's not often that someone would take pictures, quote, to a printer at that time period, as far as I know. I've not seen it before. This is a picture of the Astrocade. I think this program is actually in the basic manual, but Phil here has explained on the top you see plus 43, the bottom minus 44. On the left you see it says minus 80, and you can't quite see it on the right, but it's in there. I know it's in there because I know the Astrocade, and it says 79. That's because the origin for the Astrocade is 00 right for the center of the screen, which is a little unusual for computers at that time, which I think the origin was usually in the top left, if I'm correct. If I got that wrong, but it's always been a little interesting for me to wrap my head around the graphics of the Astrocade because I was introduced to the system many years later, and I was used to other systems at the time. This looks like a freehand drawing that says Happy Holy Days and Holy Nights. I like that the background here is reversed. Here we start getting into patterns that I like. I wish I had these programs. I'm sure that Phil probably wrote some random art, video art programs, and this is one of them. I probably created some random art. Maybe these are also directly from something that's in the Arcadian, but I haven't seen it yet. And I've used all the programs up to this point in time that were printed in the Arcadian. This one's, you know, basic but simple, and I like it. This one reminds me of an Indian pattern. I live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this is something I would see if I went to Old Town and maybe on a rug or something like that. It would be much more colorful, yellows and blues and reds, very primary colors. I could easily see something similar, not exactly, but similar to this on an Indian rug. Another random art program, I think. I mean, these obviously aren't doodled anymore. Something I've noticed in these last few pictures, and in particular in this one, if I look closely at this, they do these screen grabs that were done to the printer onto the thermal paper do kind of what happens when I take a screenshot of a picture. They're a little fuzzy, which I guess that doesn't go away. And he's using a composite signal, not a RF. I like it. This is another, I think, random art. I wish I had these programs, or it might all be one program that's running. More random art. This one black on the right side, white on the left side. And this says digital video, which at the time, was it a thing? I think all video was analog at the time, but maybe not. There wasn't much digital video, that's for sure. Nowadays, of course, you're watching this digitally. And this is from a scroll of paper that was cut up, and this is going to be showing the program that we're using here today, Electronic Visualization Center. And he messed, as he described in his letter, he messed this up along with the image processor to get these interesting patterns. I was reading online a little bit about the image processor, and I don't understand how it works, but somehow it uses feedback loops in order to make interesting designs. I'm sure it's much more complicated than that, but that's what my little brain can figure out. Also, if you take a close look here, since this is thermal paper, you can see thumbprints or fingerprints at the very least. That happened all the time with thermal printer paper. And here is his printout of the program, which he did by doing screen grabs, which I find very interesting. At the end of this video, there is going to be a basic listing of the program, and it's a little more easier to read than this. Or actually, I guess this is just as easy to read, but these are the first few pages, or first few lines, as they're also printed in the Arcadian. And as you can see here, this is the original version of the program where it says ARCADIAN HOT SHOT. You still haven't seen the program in action, but you basically can give it a number between, well, I've only used numbers 1 to 4, but presumably it goes higher. And if you do number 1, it'll draw the exact same size, like you would draw ARCADIAN HOT SHOT, the same size as the font. on the Astrocade. If you do it times 2, if you give the L variable 2, then you will have 2 times the size. So as I was saying, this is the second page, and it is lines 19 through 95. And we have 100 through 160. And the end of the program on line 240, which is a go-to loop and just loops back and draws random squares on the screen. And this is, I guess, more image processor. So you see line 180, but it's being screwed around with to make it look interesting. And there are some examples online where you can see the image processor in work if you get, or the image processor being used. I would look one of those up to see what you think of them. They look pretty neat. And a lot of them have some weird sounding sound effects and music to go along with them. Something you'd very much see maybe in an avant-garde video or something like that. Now these screenshots have been lengthened. It looks like stretched by twice the width. Some of them have anyway, not all of them. So this is ARCADIAN HOT SHOT, but at the same time it is being used with the image processor, I think, in order to get these interesting patterns. And this is the word Alaska, and Phil and Jane were going up there, so I guess this was on his mind, so he typed that into his program that made the letters bigger, and I sent a copy of it to Bob. This here is a Christmas tree in reverse video and non-reverse video, and it says Merry Christmas, Jay Fenton. And Jay Fenton at the time was Jay Fenton, J-A-Y, and now Jay Fenton is Jamie Fenton. Jay wrote Bally BASIC and numerous arcade games and stayed in the industry for many years. Eventually, in the mid-'80s, I think, working on the Macintosh, and made some famous programs on there. I guess maybe this one where it says Alaska Call, and this is his calling out for people to come to Alaska. And it's too bad Bob didn't print this, because this would have been pretty neat to see in the Arcadian. And if people had done this, it's for some reason I really dig the Astrocade and video art. And I'd like to see the image processor in action, although it has nothing to do with the Astrocade whatsoever, and it came out or was finished, I think, in '74. It was being used at the University of Chicago by that time, I think. Dan Sandin, if you ever watch this video, please leave a comment that says, hey, you're wrong, or hey, you're right. Robert is the editor of the Arcadian. That's what this one is all about. And it's another great effect created using the image processor along with the visualization center. This is another version of the Alaska Call, and this one has a reversed background. This is a pattern. This one, I recently uploaded a video called Mod 2. This looks like a version of that, actually. That program takes about 12 minutes to kind of make this pattern. I wonder if it's that. It sure looks like it could be part of it, or a small change that would make this happen. Another call out for Alaska, mixed in with the image processor. And ARCADIAN HOT SHOT again. This time it's stretched out. And that is it. Now I'm finally going to start the video. And there's going to be in 5 excerpts. You'll get to see the video running the program 5 times. First it runs as is, and all of this is explained in between each video with comments and text. This video was really not exactly about the Electronic Visualization Center, so I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any interest in video art history, do me a favor and link to this video, because it's turned out to be longer than I expected and more about video art and not specifically the Astrocade than I expected. Those who are interested in video art might just find watching the first, I don't know, half of this video interesting. And if you're just here for the history, you might want to stop watching now, because the rest of the video is kind of boring, although it's interesting to take a look at what could be done in BASIC. Enjoy.